Since the very beginning of time, humans have accepted the idea of a flattened stationary Earth enclosed in a spherical dome. This idea was accepted all throughout the world by many cultures. It is also the oldest conception of our cosmos known to man. All ancient cultures subscribe to a flat Earth cosmography. The flat Earth model is said to be an archaic conception of Earth's shape as a plane. The word archaic translates to very old or old-fashioned, also meaning no longer in everyday use, or in this case, it's no longer being taught in today's educational systems. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the god of earth is called Geb, and he was often found lying on a flat ground beneath his mother Nut. In the ancient Hebrew conception of the universe, the ancient Israelites divided the world into heaven, earth, sea, and the underworld. They viewed the sky as a vault resting on foundations. The world was viewed as a disk floating on waters secured by pillars. Even the ancient Islamic conception of the cosmos shows the earth as a flat plane enclosed in a sky canopy. In fact, today, the Muslims build their mosques this very way. And many other cultures had cosmologies that were identical to these, such as the ancient Norse, the ancient Hindu, the ancient Mayan, the ancient Incan, the ancient Navajo, and even the ancient Kushite, which is known as Ethiopia, as well as the ancient Masonic cosmos, shows the arch and square plane. Now I know the question many of you may be asking, how did we get the cosmology that we have today? Many of you, just like me, can remember when we were in school. In history class, we were taught many great things that the ancients had accomplished. We were taught about many great temples and many great technological feats that the ancients accomplished. We give them credit and reverence for so many great things today. But the one thing that we were taught to mock and laugh at was the ancient idea of a flat earth enclosed in a spherical dome. We weren't taught much about this conception of the cosmos because they was too busy indoctrinating us with the globe. How did we arrive at this point? How did the entire earth go from this ancient conception of the cosmos to the popular models that so many of us readily accept today? This video will answer that question and so many more. I'm going to go over a timeline of the heliocentric theory, which came after the geocentric theory. So in 300 BC, Greek philosophers Plato and Aristotle models geocentric theory with Earth as a sphere. Aristotle publishes in his book On the Heavens. Keep in mind that there's no historical proof of the real existence of a Plato and Aristotle, and many believe today that they were fictitious names that was used to forge history under. We see that the book On the Heavens was published in 300 BC, and it was Aristotle's chief cosmological treatise written in 350 BC. It contains his astronomical theory and his ideas on the concrete workings of the terrestrial world. According to Aristotle, in On the Heavens, the heavenly bodies are the most perfect realities whose motions are ruled by principles other than those of bodies in the sublunary sphere. So in Aristotelian physics and Greek astronomy, the sublunary sphere is the region of the geocentric cosmos below the moon, consisting of the four classical elements, earth, water, air, and fire. So here in front of you is an example of the Aristotle/Ptolemaic universe. Ptolemy played a key role in bringing heliocentrism and Hellenism into Egypt and introducing this concept to the people of those lands, along with the Bible and Christian concepts as well. If you look at this Aristotle/Ptolemaic universe, you can see in the direct center would be the earth, and above it would be what's called by the ancients the 7 wandering stars. Today we call them the planets, but Earth is really the only planet. And when you do the etymology of planet, you see that it simply means a plane enclosed in a net or a nut. Just like I showed previously, this is the oldest conception of the cosmos. And the first change of that concept was the model you see in front of you now. And the only significant change was that the Earth was now balled up as a ball, but it was still in the center of the universe. Before this change, there was no known recorded ends to the Earth. And there are so many lands that you can reach before you even make it to the dome, according to a lot of ancients. But the first change to that model, again, is what you see in front of you. And basically what Aristotle and Ptolemy did, along with Plato, and basically what Plato, Aristotle, and Ptolemy did in this model was ball the Earth up into a sphere. And they got rid of the archdome concept. So now the concept of us living on the surface of a ball came to be, and the concept of space, which separated us from the source of the creation, now came to be with this model here. But it doesn't stop quite yet. This is a geocentric model, meaning that the Earth is at the center, but it still doesn't mean it's flat. So that was a long journey to us leading up to the cosmology that we know today. And it starts right here with the model in front of you. And as you can see, again, the Earth in the center, and above it, the 7 wandering stars. We know that 7 is a very symbolic number, symbolizing completion. There's 7 days of a week. There's 7 continents, supposedly. There's 7 chakras. And if you want to know more about the significance of the number 7, especially in relation to the cosmology, I did do a video entitled The 7 Wandering Stars that you can find a link to in the description area. And it's a very interesting video that'll go even deeper into the concept of the 7 wandering stars. So now that we got an idea of how Plato, Aristotle, and even Ptolemy conceived the cosmos in their time, we can hop back over to our timeline. So this was in 300 BC, and this is the geocentric theory under Plato and Aristotle. And we move on to 200 BC, the Greek Aristarchus of Samos placed Earth and other planets in motion around the central sun, but this was rejected by the Aristotelians. So here in 200 BC, we see that Aristarchus actually proposed the modern concept that we have today of Earth and other planets going around the central sun, but it was rejected then. So we move up to 140 CE, and Claudius Ptolemy of Alexandria devised a complex system of quote-unquote epicycles to account for retrograde, going backwards motion of the planets, published his theory in a book called Almagest. In 200 CE, Ptolemaic system was developed by Claudius Ptolemaeus, the Almagest, and it was the geocentric theory. And in 1270, the Roman Catholic Church adopts priest Thomas Aquinas' theory of a God-ordained and man-made centered universe, which declared the glory of God. So far as we backtrack, we see that this guy Aristarchus, around the time of 310 to 230 BC, was an ancient Greek astronomer who presented the first known model that placed the sun at the center of the known universe, with the earth revolving around it. And that would be the solar system that many of us learned about when we were children. And it was a simple stationary sun-centered system with the planets going around it, sort of like a hypnotization spiral. So Aristarchus was influenced by Philolaus of Croton, but Aristarchus identified the central fire with the sun, and he put the other planets in their correct order of distance around the sun. Like Anaxagoras before him, he suspected that the stars were just other bodies like the sun, albeit further away from Earth. He was also the first one to deduce the rotation of Earth on its axis. His astronomical ideas were often rejected in favor of the geocentric theories of Aristotle and Ptolemy. Nicholas Copernicus attributed the heliocentric theory to Aristarchus. So one thing I want to point out in relation to everything we just went over is that the time we're in now, when we're talking Aristotle, Plato, Ptolemaic universe here, we're talking the Hellenistic period. And this was still kind of the era of Alexander, the Ptolemies, the time of the fall of Egypt. What we want to keep in mind is what went along with the fall of Egypt was that the Egyptians not only lost their native deities, but they also were given foreign deities and foreign cosmologies. Anytime a people is given a new deity, they are automatically given a new cosmology with that deity, because all gods reign from heaven, and different people had different conceptions of heaven based on their cosmology. So this is why the Bible has its own cosmology. So when the Ptolemies and Alexanders and the likes came and invaded Egypt during this Hellenistic period, remember that all of the cosmologies were linked to religion, and science and religion were one, even in the ancient world when they were flat earthers. It wasn't till this change, or what we call geocentrism, Plato and Aristotle's universe, which was enforced by Ptolemy, it wasn't until this change in this Hellenistic era that the concept of an enclosed earth didn't exist. So we also went over the fact that around 200 CE, Claudius Ptolemaeus developed his geocentric theory system in a publishing entitled Almagest or Almagest. And this was a 2nd century Greek language mathematical and astronomical treatise on the apparent motions of the stars and planetary paths, again written by Claudius Ptolemy. It was said by some to be the most influential scientific text of its time. Its geocentric model was accepted for more than 1,200 years from its origin in Hellenistic Alexandria in the medieval Byzantine and Islamic worlds, and in Western Europe through the Middle Ages and early Renaissance until Copernicus. So the Almagest is the critical source of information on ancient Greek astronomy. It has also been valuable to students of mathematics because it documents the ancient Greek mathematician Hipparchus' work, which has been lost. Hipparchus wrote about trigonometry, but because his works appear to have been lost, mathematicians use Ptolemy's book as their source for Hipparchus' work in ancient Greek trigonometry in general. Ptolemy set up a public inscription at Canopus, Egypt in 147 or 148. N.T. Hamilton found that the version of Ptolemy's model set out in the canopic inscription was earlier than the version of the Almagest. So again, we also read that in 1270, the Roman Catholic Church adopted the priest Thomas Aquinas' theory of a God-ordained and man-centered universe, which declared the glory of God. So I think it's very important to keep in mind that around the time they was getting rid of the ancient concept of the flat earth cosmology and replacing it with geocentrism, there was a lot of indoctrination and slavery taking place. But again, as we read in 1270, Thomas Aquinas' theory of a God-centered universe was adopted by the Catholic Church. And this was right after the geocentrism era, for lack of better words. Right after this, in 1453, the Gutenberg printing press was developed. I think we need to pay attention to the timeline because before all of this, the earth was a flat plane in the center of the cosmos. The first major change was removing the archdome, or removing the covenant or the covering, and balling the earth up and creating space in between the people and the Most High. And after they reached this step, the next step was Thomas Aquinas' theory of a God-centered universe. So we know that most of us who are awakened, that Jesus is just a personification of the sun, and we're dealing with astral theology. But here we can see the history of it all, because at this time they had replaced the earth with the sun, and now the sun was the center of the cosmos. Because at this time they were getting ready to start altering this model a bit more. As we read on, you will see where we go from geocentrism, where you have the earth as a ball and space is now created, the covering is removed. You still have your 7 wandering stars, but the next step would be to change the earth into one of those wandering stars, and we call those planets today, and remove it from the center of the cosmos and replace it with the sun dominating the entire system. That would be the next step that we're going to get into here shortly. And this was created by sun-worshipping Freemasons and heliocentrists and elite men, for lack of better words. But we see the timeline here that when they was altering the cosmology, they were also developing concepts of a sun-centered universe. So if you fast forward time up until today, you can see that today's science has the sun at the center of the universe, and every religious text has the sun at the center of the entire storyline.